If we could address you directly right now.
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good wash in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. Keep going a little bit longer.
W261AC Oswego, WTKWHD2 Bridgeport, ESPN Radio. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome into the 2 o'clock hour of Newhouse Afternoon here at the Newhouse School. Nico Horning and Alex Pohl with you this morning. Evan Fay unfortunately cannot join us here today. We'll look forward to having him on next Monday, which will be our last show of the semester. It's been a minute since we've been on here. I know. It's our last. I think it is our last show. Yeah.
That's
going by fast. Sad times.
Sad times.
Yeah, it's going by fast. But you know what? We'll have a good celebration. Maybe we'll recap a couple of our highlighted moments of the semester. So we'll see what happens there. But hopefully we'll have Evan back on next week. We could not make last week because all of us were running around. I think we were, covering different things.
All over the country?
Yep. Pretty much. So sorry about that. Anyways, we are back, though, so that's what matters. And I know it's a great lineup for you here on a Monday.
Definitely.
Lacrosse. Wow. The men's team with a big win against Notre Dame. You got the women's team blowing out Cal over the weekend. And, hey, both the teams coming together at the right time in the final month of the season. We'll get into the women's team later. Also, March Madness with the championship game tonight. That's also very important. And Syracuse basketball with some transfers as well. We'll see what they shape up in doing next year. But first off, men's lacrosse. Big win over Notre Dame over the weekend. 2 top 10 teams. And it didn't look pretty early on when Notre Dame jumped out 3-0, but Syracuse took it from there.
Syracuse played phenomenal in this game overall. They really did such a great job, and they have been towards the end of this season, like you said. They took down Virginia, and I just actually want to start off by talking about that game.
Sure.
Their win over Virginia, and I think that the UVA head coach said it best in his post-game conference of when Syracuse moves the ball, they are unstoppable. They're able to they're so quick with it, passing back and forth, and no one is able to play defense on them. You're not only just, it doesn't even have the defense sliding, they're just running around at that point, scrambling, trying to play defense on whoever on the attack has the ball, whether it's Michael Leo, Joey Spallina, Luke Roa, like Owen Hill, Sam. They have so many amazing options and so much talent and depth on this team. So if they're continuously moving the ball super fast, there's no defense that is able to stop them, and that's exactly what gave them the win versus UVA. They were slow at the start. They weren't moving as quick. UVA had a couple slides, all as well. They were able to crash down on them. But when they moved the ball fast, there's no stopping them.
So 12-10 win over Virginia. That was last Saturday. And then, of course, maybe you were in the Dome on Saturday, this past Saturday, which was a very good filled environment. More than 10,000 people there, and I think it was the most since 2015. Something
it was
like
that. It was like 11,000 and something hundred.
Yeah,
but
no, it was a great atmosphere in the Dome on Saturday, and you talk about that offense, and they needed it against a really, really good Notre Dame team, and they had it at the right time. I think that was the most important thing was they fell down 3-0 like we talked about, but that second quarter was really what set them apart and propelled them for the rest of the game. A 6-0 second quarter. I think it was 6-0. Did Notre Dame get one in that?
No, they didn't.
They
so
got
it was a 6-0 quarter, and actually Syracuse went on a 9-0 streak. So it was about 4 minutes left in the first quarter to only a few minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah.
9-0 streak. And that, obviously has to do with the amazing job that the Syracuse attack did, like you said, moving the ball around, keeping it hot, and getting those shots off. But it also comes down to the goalie as well.
Sure.
So in this game, Jimmy McCool did just a phenomenal job in net, and he has been all season. I'm not going to lie, beginning of the season, didn't give him any hate, no shade, but we didn't know what to expect.
Exactly. That was the whole question.
He was an unproven goalie. Like,
that was the whole question coming into the year was,
100%.
You know, you come off of this Will Mark excellent couple years, and you don't know what you're getting into goaltending-wise. But he's been great. He had the one downfall against Harvard. He got benched.
Correct.
And they brought in Ippoliti to replace him, and you know that was definitely Syracuse's worst loss of the year. Not because Harvard was such a bad team. It was just the way Syracuse lost could have been handled a little bit differently in the game. And I think a lot of the players could have wished they could go back to that game, or else they'd probably be ranked in the top 3 for the last couple of weeks without that loss. But McCool was definitely the main question coming into the season. And besides that Harvard game, he's answered why he has been the Syracuse starting goaltender. He's come up really clutch. And, you know, the cool part, too, is the rest of the defense has been helping him out, so he hasn't had to face too many shots. I think Will Mark definitely had more volume coming on him, but McCool has really stood his ground the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the fact that with a lot of these Syracuse teams in general, but especially with lacrosse, it's sometimes the attack's having a great day, sometimes it's the defense.
Yep.
And during this Notre Dame game, the attack did a phenomenal job, and the defense totally stepped up, matched their energy, especially Jimmy McCool. He just had some bombastic saves in goal, doing such an amazing job. And he has been throughout the whole season. So, I mean, there's no doubt of his ability. He has totally proven himself and has been. There's, I mean, no question why he's the starting goalie. He had such a phenomenal game, having 10 saves and only let up 9 goals. So being the goalie, play the whole game. Right. I think the reason why I also had some doubt is because, obviously, you said Will Mark was a phenomenal goalie, and I was worried we were going to run into a similar situation that Notre Dame has come into. Notre Dame lost the game. They're reigning back-to-back national champs, and I think that it's also a matter of we didn't rely on Will Mark as much as they relied on Liam Entenmann. So Liam Entenmann was easily, hands down, best goalie in the entire country for multiple years, still is one of the best goalies to ever play, at least in my opinion. Did I go to the same middle school as him? Maybe. I promise. Not biased.
The truth
came out. But he is, if you just look at his numbers, he's the reason why Notre Dame made it as far as they did. They do have great attack, but he led that defense, making some incredible saves, and he's what kept them in so many of their games. They had a lot of close wins, especially the national championship at one point. It's because of him, and we see it right here with Notre Dame. They lost the game because Syracuse went on a shooting streak that the goalie was just not able to lock it down in net. And so that's what obviously a concern was, having McCool not being a proven goalie in the college realm. Obviously, he was a phenomenal goalie in high school, All-American, no doubt about his ability, but, you know, you're not playing for a while. You're only in practice. I think that's also what helps, is you have the talent, top talent, Joey Spleen and Michael Leah, all the guys we've already named, that are constantly shooting on him these past 3 years. So no wonder he's still as, you know, solid and on point as he was when he was in high school, and able to catch up better than the Notre Dame goalie's been able to, because he definitely hasn't been able to fill Entenmann's shoes. Not that anyone can, but it's definitely a concern when that's what something you're relying on, is your goalie to help your defense out. And thankfully, Syracuse is lucky enough to have Jimmy McCool.
Well, it's one of those things when you lose a quarterback in football. It's very similar, where you could have the best team and then you lose your guy, and it doesn't feel the same the next year. I think Syracuse has avoided that for the most part this year, having McCool and not Will Mark. But, you know, we'll see how it plays out down the line. You still got a very tough team in Cornell this weekend. You got to play Duke. And then North Carolina as well. So it's a very, very, very tough end of the season. But
and we're also lucky enough that McCool's only a junior.
Yes.
So
still got another year.
Still have another year. And he redshirted his true freshman year.
2 years.
So we still have for 2 more years potentially.
All this eligibility stuff is
lots of eligibility on his end, which is great for us. The fact that he's playing as well as he is right now, we're in
a good spot.
In a phenomenal spot. The team overall I'm not going to say that they're going to win it this year, but I think that it's the way that they've been playing. If they can keep this up, I have no doubt in their ability to at least make it to championship, if not Final Four. But in the next year or two, it's definitely a possibility.
And the 100%. You know, the biggest thing a few weeks ago was, after those 2 losses, could they rebound? You know, could they turn the page? And they have. That's been the most impressive thing, I think, from this team. And now they jumped up in the rankings again. So it's a very, very good time to be hot. And I was asked this question early on. Like, I think maybe you asked it to me. Would you rather have those 2 losses earlier in the season or later in the season? And I feel like I wanted to say later because you're playing better teams later on. But if they're going to play this way and they're going to lose to some of those mediocre teams early on and then, come back and bounce back in the last few weeks of the season and beat some of these really, really good top dogs, then I think they're doing all right. So
it's definitely a different team than what we've seen in the past.
Yes.
I know last year they had a couple losses and they struggled coming back from them. They did.
Exactly.
Even when they had time where they had a full week off and no games. I know that's what I think I'd asked you at one point. It's like, would you rather have a giant break between your next game, or do you want another game right after a win or right after a loss to prove yourself and come back from it? And they haven't been able to do that in the past and come back against top teams. But this season they completely turned it around, and it's going to be a very telling next couple weeks because you have number 1 Cornell. So that's on Saturday, which again then gives them a full week to prepare. Then the following Saturday is Duke, number 12, and then the following Saturday is number 7 UNC. So between each of those games, they do have a full week to prepare and do what they need to do. But if they keep playing the way that they have been, especially in the past 2 games, I think that I think they're going to win at least 2 of the 3. I think Cornell's going to be
tough.
The one that's the most up in the air right now.
CJ Kirst, pretty much Tewaaraton favorite, is playing Syracuse this weekend. It's going to be a very tough challenge for the Orange. And, I thought Notre Dame was tough. Cornell is a dang good team. So, we'll see how that goes. It is a neutral site game. So
correct. It's down on Long Island.
Yeah, according to some sources, Syracuse has had some neutral success. I think they beat Johns Hopkins. That was in Charlotte. Was that last year or was that the year before? I think it was last year. Yep. So, we'll see what goes on. But
and also being, right by the hometown of multiple Syracuse players with their top talent.
Very true. So we'll see how that one goes. Also, we talk a lot about McCool, but that offense continued to do its thing on Saturday. Joey Spallina, because he didn't do anything against Virginia, and I think it's an interesting take because they never created that much separation against Virginia, and then they finally had a couple of goals toward the end to do that. But the way Spallina got involved, right? We talk about no goals in the first quarter. Spallina had a couple goals to get things going in that second quarter. And I've come on here time and time again and talked about him not being a goal scorer in a good way, but the way he set the tone on Saturday by scoring those 2 goals got his team going. And he finished with 4 and then another assist. So a 5-point game from him. And then, you could go down the list about, the guys that had 2 goals at least in that game. Yeah. This offense is carrying.
100%. It's carrying. And I think that's where I think we've seen, especially this season, Joey Spallina really growing as a player and a leader on this team and maturing as a player. Like you said, he's also doesn't take too many shots per game, doesn't force it, and he just helps instigate this entire attack. Like you said, he's not always a goal scorer, but he realizes when he needs to be, and I think that's the most important part. He was like, hey, we're not playing the way that we need to be. We're not getting the ball in the back net. Let me step in for a second, put 2 back there, and then take some time off a little bit right after that. And that's where he's really shined on this team, is being there when they need him to be. And like you said, we have multiple players with 2 goals, Michael Leo, Sam English. And then another player that stood out to me, like I said, we have so much talent on this team and young talent as well, which is why I think they're going to be great for the next couple of years. You're not losing too many people. And one player that stood out to me was Peyton Anderson.
Sure.
He's a freshman.
Yeah.
A true freshman. And
great game against Virginia, too.
Had a phenomenal game against Virginia. And in the game on Saturday, he had 2 assists and a goal on top of it. So he has 3 points in that game, one all the way towards the top of the leaderboard and the stat sheet for this team. And he's only a freshman.
Right. That's pretty. It's a good future for this team. Not to mention that there's still this year with 3 games left and then the playoffs. So it should be a fun run to end the year. Give me your initial thoughts on Saturday with Cornell. It's going to be a very, you'd think, close game. Cornell is really good, though. I mean, there's a reason why they're number 1. But again, neutral site game, and I think Syracuse has got to come out firing, because if they fall down again, like they did in Notre Dame, when you have CJ Kirst, pretty much the best scorer in the country, things can take a turn. So I think getting out to a hot start is going to be most important on Saturday.
Yeah, I think a hot start and keeping the momentum going, even if they play the way they did at the start of the Virginia game, and the start of Notre Dame game, not moving the ball around too much, they have to keep the ball hot. That's the only way they're going to be able to break down that Cornell defense. And then, I'm hoping for and expecting a big game from McCool again. He has to be able to, especially, like you said.
Really need him against some of those top scorers, yeah.
Like you said, you have Kurst, who's just one of the best goal scorers, if not the best goal scorer in the entire country.
Yep.
And so he really showed up last year against Syracuse, and he's who secured the win for them against Syracuse last year in that overtime game. So having McCool be strong in the net, I think that a problem that they had faced last season when they took on Cornell and had ended up losing in overtime was that Cornell is smart. There's no wonder why they're an Ivy League school. They are a smart team and coaching staff. They were realizing that on Will Mark, he was constantly not able to track the ball when it was going low. They were making low shot after low shot and bad shot, one after the other, and scoring every single time. And, Will Mark didn't end up making any adjustments.
Right.
And neither did the defense. They were taking shots from the same spot and placing them in the same place, and there was no adjustment to it. They ended up moving things around. Even the Cornell team had swapped their goalies around when Syracuse kept hitting them in the top corner. They were smart. They switched up their goalie. And I'm hoping that we don't have to switch out McCool, but I expect from him, and I think McCool's going to be able to make those changes if he needs to mid-game and be able to read Kurst and his shots. And I think that we can win this game if it comes down to a great day from McCool in the defense, and also the attack, being able to move the ball around, and Joey Spallina stepping up when he needs to. Well, it's a winnable game if they play the way that they have been in the past 2 weeks.
Correct. I think if they play the way they did against Notre Dame, despite the slow start, falling down 3-0, they got a really good shot
100%.
On Saturday. All right, Syracuse and Cornell in Uniondale down in Long Island on Saturday, and should be a good one down there against the #1 Cornell team. So we'll see how that one goes. When we come back, March Madness is tonight. It's Houston and Florida. We'll break that down and give our thoughts here on Newhouse Afternoon. Thank you. Did you play at that field in Long Island?
I never played there.
Okay. Someone said you did, but
I have not.
I didn't buy it, so I have to. No. I bought it. No, I bought it.
Oh no!
My
high school, our men's team played on that field a few times. I've been on the field, but I did not play on that field.
So what field is it? Like, is it a?
Unfortunately.
Like, what makes it special?
It's just a college field.
Like what college?
I believe they're playing at Hofstra, are they not?
Oh, I think, yeah, you're right.
It's Hofstra.
Okay, got it. I see. Oh, that's a cool, that's pretty big.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times.
Okay.
Our boys team
size.
made it almost every year that we were in high school.
Dang, that's a nice facility.
Fortunately, I think we fell one game short one year, and then our lacrosse team our women's team never played on that field.
Got it.
Unfortunately. Football too. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Weren't the best athletes at our school, but
shout out.
It's fine. Now we do have it. Just it depends on what conference you're in, because they kept switching things around. So like our men's team, they automatically went and got to play on the field because they were put in Class D. And for some reason, we had to play 2 classes above them at one point. It was the weirdest thing ever. I don't know why that was allowed. So we had to play against teams like Wantagh, Massapequa, these like giant programs of insane girls. That's where Jolie Caramelli went to school. I actually had to lost against her, bumped us out of it. Like playing against huge schools that every single girl in that roster is committed to a D1 program.
Yeah.
We had
it's tough.
Great players on our team all also committed to different programs, but not like those teams were. We were the tiny little school. So they had hundreds of people in their high school, like hundreds, sometimes per grade. Ours, my graduating class, I think we were like 88 people. So we were really, really tiny. And the fact that we had to play against them was insane. But our boys team played against the little tiny schools, and so they were able to go every single year. They didn't even we had a bracket, so sometimes we had to play like 5 different rounds to get there. The boys had an automatic bid just to go because there's only 3 teams in their whole. I don't know how that worked with high school sports. Why the girls' team and the guys' team plays in different. Cause it's the same school size, obviously. But
Weird.
I don't know.
Yeah, 88 people.
Whatever. I'm over it. It's fine.
That's crazy.
I was definitely upset about it in high school. Never got to play on the field because we had to play up in a different conference against much larger schools. But
odd.
It's fine. I got over it. I'm not still upset. I'm not holding on to that anymore. It's been 3 years.
Sure. It's coming back to haunt you now that
it's coming now. I know. Now that you said, like, oh, did you ever play on that field? I'm like,
yeah. Someone mentioned that. I don't know who it was.
About that. No. So. Didn't end up playing there, but it's all good.
Yeah. My class was 650 people. Yeah.
Wow.
Big high school.
Definitely. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy.
650? Wait, just your class?
Our high school is like 2,500 kids. Yeah.
That's crazy. No, that's crazy.
But it's like it's like the whole town, so it's like.
Yeah, I mean, my high school is. Maybe less than probably like.
So like, how many people were in like your classes?
Class size, it
maybe
depended on what class you were taking, but probably around 15 people.
Yeah.
What about you?
We had like anywhere from like 25 to 35.
Oh, 35.
But more teachers, I assume, and stuff. So, the class sizes were still pretty small. It's just, just way more classes. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, no, we had.
Like my sister's volleyball team had like 80 people try out freshman year and like 50.
Yeah, see, we didn't even have JV teams for some of our sports. Like, there's just not enough kids.
Yeah,
there aren't enough of us. There were certain, like, men's basketball every single year.
Watch live on QSportsTalk.com. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
This hour of Newhouse Afternoon is powered by Drivers Village Cicero. Go to dvoffers.com for more info. Nico Horning, Alex Pohl back with you here on Newhouse Afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. We believe second to last show here of the semester, so we'll get that confirmed. Evan Fay not with us today. Hopefully he'll be back on with us next week. So with that, we talked a lot about Syracuse men's lacrosse here in the first few minutes of the show. A great win over Notre Dame this past weekend. Big matchup against Cornell on Saturday, but we've got a bigger game tonight, and that is Houston and Florida in March Madness, now April Madness, by the way, which I always find weird that it is March Madness, but it doesn't start till very late March, and then it carries into early April. So, maybe new name one of these days will happen there. But I guess most of the madness takes place in March, so it makes sense. National championship game tonight, though, Florida and Houston, both with really interesting last games or so, which the way they won and got to this spot. Florida against Texas Tech, first of all, getting to the Final Four. Went on a very hot run at the end of the game, knocked down a bunch of three-pointers and got back into it in San Francisco. I was actually there at that game.
Oh, wow.
So saw it firsthand. Ridiculous comeback by them. I really thought the Texas Tech defense was gonna stop Florida, but all you need is a run in this tournament to get hot and end up at the end. So Florida beat Texas Tech. And then here they are beating Auburn the other day to get to this point in the championship. Houston closed out Duke. Again, another comeback there. That was an incredible end to the game.
Close games overall.
And close games overall, especially Florida and Auburn. That was a very close game. I think a better overall game. But,
even
boy, that Duke
Houston,
and Houston
Tennessee.
Game was, yeah. Well, what about Houston, Tennessee? Close game, too? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a lot of them were close games.
Oh, yeah.
And Houston, Purdue, they only won by 2 points.
Right. Houston's played in a lot of close games, and I think that could be why they have the edge tonight against Florida. But also at the same time, I think Florida is definitely the better overall team, especially when it comes to hot shooting.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
So then who do you expect to win the game?
So,
who do you?
Thanks for asking this.
Yeah.
Before you do the Gator job. So, all right. I think Florida's got the better shot tonight if they go hot. And by hot, I mean, like, you got to have a good second half run. If Florida creates separation, goes up by 10, I don't think they lose. If they don't get hot and Houston's defense can sustain them like they held Duke to 65 or 70 points going into the later stretch in that second half. So if Houston can do that again against Florida, I think Houston will win. But if Florida goes on any sort of second half run to go up by 10, like Duke did against Houston, I think Florida can hold on to it because they are the better offensive team in this game tonight. So with that, I guess I got to pick an option.
You got to make a choice.
So I'm going to go Houston. Go Cougars.
All right.
That's my choice there. I think Florida, again, they got the better offense. Houston's got the better defense.
Back your
And
team.
Houston's
Stick with
Houston's my
Houston.
pick. Houston's my pick. Yeah, I'm picking Houston. All right.
Picking Houston.
There we go. How about you? 'Cause I know you're not agreeing with me.
I do not.
Maybe you are.
I do not.
No. All right.
And I believe that Florida is going to take the win. Now,
Why is that?
part of the reason why I'm saying that because Evan is not here.
Supporting Evan.
And
That's
I'm
a fair
supporting
point.
Evan.
Fair point.
Because unfortunately he could not make it today. And what he said weeks ago when we were making our predictions before the start is that he thought Florida was going to make it to the end.
I couldn't
that
stand
they
it.
were going to win. You got very upset by that fact.
I did.
And what he said, we'll be back here in a couple weeks and he'll be doing the Gator Chomp right before the game. And that's exactly what we're doing right now.
I want to break that up.
I think that Florida will be taking the win tonight against Houston. I do think that Houston is more comfortable in close matchups when it comes down to the last few minutes of the game or games that are back and forth the whole time. I don't disagree that if Florida gets a win, like Florida gets a run and a big lead, that they can hold on to it. And I agree in terms of if it's a back and forth game though, Houston's going to pull out the win because they are more comfortable in those tight matchups.
Can't agree more. The line of this game, Florida by 1.5. I thought that would have been bigger, to be honest, based on their offense. And I think most people expected this game to open up a little bit bigger with Florida. I thought it would have been a few point separation just purely based on that offense. But Houston, sort of that sleepy number one team that's made it this far. I think Florida overshadowed them. Duke obviously has overshadowed them with Cooper Flag all tournament, not getting injured, being able to play this whole time. And then Houston just, I don't want to say they came out of nowhere, but for a number one team, they did. And it was a remarkable performance in that game. An incredible end, and they deserve to be here. So I'm expecting a back and forth game for the most part. I'm just going to wait for that moment for Florida to create some separation and see what they can do, especially with Walter Clayton Jr., great Gators player that has been off the charts. He's been hot, and he had a great game against Texas Tech as well. So we'll see what they can do tonight.
Yeah, I think it's all going to come down to endurance and if it's that close of a game and being able to last until the end. And also for Florida, Houston was outscoring Duke 19-12 on those second chance opportunities.
Sure.
So Florida's going to have to be very, very careful about protecting the rim, and the bigs are going to have to be relentless in the rebounding and making sure that they're able to get those rebounds, not giving Houston a second chance, because that's where they really were able to pull away from Duke a little bit, especially towards the end. And that, I think that's one way that Florida will be able to close a gap if it is a close game, but it's going to come down to the bigs being aggressive, but also not falling into any foul trouble. Also, that's where I think they might have a couple issues if it's a close game, but they have to be able to protect the rim on those second chance opportunities.
Going to be very important. Emmanuel Sharp as well with Houston, shooting 40% over the last several games. He's been good for the Cougars this year as well. And offensively, kind of Houston and Texas Tech, I don't want to say they remind me of each other, but the way that they are built by their defense, Houston's had a great offensive season. So did Texas Tech. And again, if Florida plays Houston like they did against Tech in that Elite Eight game, I think I think Florida has a good shot tonight. But I don't know. If Houston can stop that Florida run, then I think they can pull it out. So I'm very curious to see which direction this game goes. I don't expect a first half blowout.
I don't expect a first half blowout, but I think especially towards the end of the game, if it is close, it might not even come down to Houston, but Florida just digging themselves too big of a hole if they fall into that foul issue, because in 9 of their past 11 games, their opponents had at least 22 free throw attempts.
We'll see.
22 is a wild amount to be able to give up in a game in 9 of the past of the 11 ones. So if that happens against Houston and it's a close game, especially towards the end of the game, every single time you foul, they're going to then hit the line. Yeah. It's not going to be pretty for them.
And Florida, I'll kind of reverse that a little bit because I keep talking about the Texas Tech game, but I was there, so it helps. Florida started fouling them with like 3.5 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And in college basketball, you can do that because things can change in a hurry. Guys miss free throws. That's how it goes. So there's that as well. If you want to give us your thoughts, you can call us at 315-437-7644 if you want to chime in about Florida or Houston taking it all tonight down in San Antonio. You can do so and call into the show. So Alex is picking the Gators. I'm picking Houston. So we'll see what goes down tonight in the national championship. Overall, though, great March Madness. Not too many upsets overall. I think some towards the end.
Not at all, really.
I'd say Duke was an upset against Houston, even though they're both number ones. There were some
there are
other
no like
smaller
Cinderella
upsets.
stories.
No Cinderellas, but I'm okay with that. I think I had all number ones in my bracket, so I think that it was a good year for the number ones to make it all the way, and
it's nice to see the teams that were really put in the work
nice
throughout the whole
season.
Exactly, it's nice. Like, I mean, I love a great Cinderella story. It's great when you see a team that no one expected to make it as far as they did. I mean, last year with NC State, like that was fun. But sometimes it is nice to see the teams that really put in consistent work and made those rankings all throughout the season, really worked towards the end, and then
actually
to see them
at the end,
actually match up at the end, and now being in the finals together, and the Final Four being all number one seeds. It's nice to see the teams like who were there all season make it to the end.
I know a lot of people wanted to see Florida play Auburn at the end. They got that, and it was a extremely close game the entire time with Florida winning. So great tournament overall. Wraps up tonight with Florida and Houston, 8:50. These college tournament times, so odd, every one of them. But 8:50 tonight. I'm just going to say 9 o'clock because it's easier. Tune in 10 minutes late. No, I didn't tell you that. Florida and Houston tonight should be a fun one. I got the Cougars. Alex has the Gators. Evan, who is here in spirit, also
definitely has the Gators.
Florida. Oh, man. I'm going to, you know what? When I come on this show next Monday, I'm going to do the chomp, but it's going to be for the Cougars. So I'm going to do a reverse. I'm going to do a reverse one. Yeah, so should be fun. All right, Florida and Houston tonight. When we come back, Syracuse basketball, not exactly in the mix right now, but they did have some newcomers commit to the Orange in the last several days. We'll get to that here on Newhouse Afternoon. You're listening to ESPN Syracuse and Q Sports Talk.
The three.
I cannot wait to do that reverse chomp.
Reverse chomp. Terrible.
So, what are your thoughts on the new basketball transfers?
I think that, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this team.
Too many people say stuff early on.
Yeah, and I think that it's like something that I thought was going to be an issue from the start. I mean, yeah, we needed to hit the transfer portal hard because we just don't have the bodies and the talent. But at the same time, we could just run into the same issue we had this year. Everyone at the start of the season was like, oh, we have all this talent, and then there was no chemistry. So, I mean, yeah, it's great. And exactly. So, yeah, we're pulling in a lot of great talent, but if they can't work together, then it does nothing for us. So,
pretty much.
We'll talk about it. It's fine.
We'll get there.
Wait, so is this our last show? Scroll up.
Well, this is not updated.
No, just.
Oh, yes. I think it is. 7/14, and then
21, and then we're out. Oh my gosh, next week's our last show. So
Crazy.
we'll work on that guest. Oh, well, that will be after the Cornell game.
Yeah, we'll need someone.
So.
Bring on McCool no matter what.
Exactly. I mean, it would have been nice to have. I was gonna say it would have been cool to have him on today.
True.
But especially after the Notre Dame game. But we'll see.
Oh, jeez. I hate when it's late.
But hey, after Cornell, that would be, if it's a win, that would be the most that'd be great to have them on. And even if it's a loss, they still have 2 ones coming up. Oh, my goodness. They still would have 2 more big matchups right after that, having Duke and UNC.
Yeah, true. Sorry for the green text, by the way.
All good. What do you have
Sorry,
going
I
on
just
the
saw
rest
this.
of the day?
What do I have? 2 more classes. And a store run. And I'm going to watch the game later. How about
Nice. I'm not sure if I have practice tonight.
you? Oh, how'd your game go yesterday?
We killed them.
Okay. Good.
So boring.
Oh.
But we found out that we made it to regionals. So on Sunday, we will be playing in the regional tournament in Binghamton.
Nice.
So
Cool.
in some ways, I feel like we would have practice today and Wednesday to prepare for that, because that's going to be like the rough tournament
Yeah.
to play in. But at the same time, we won yesterday, so usually when we win on a Sunday, we get off on Monday. But with regionals this weekend, I'm not sure. They haven't actually said anything, whether we do or don't have practice tonight. So,
Should probably check on that.
well, no, they haven't said anything.
Oh, they just haven't texted.
No, they haven't texted. So
So
we'll
how'd
see.
you were goalie on?
Yep.
Okay. Not much action. Just standing there, rooting on your offense.
I was chilling on the sideline. I played in for a little bit, and I was like, I'm freezing cold. And I wasn't seeing any shots.
Where was your game?
Skytop.
Oh, that's right. It's here.
Yeah, it was cold.
Cold one yesterday.
It was chilly yesterday.
Yeah.
But then the Syracuse men's lacrosse team had a game after us. Not 100% sure if they ended up winning. I think UConn came out with a win over them. Not 100% sure, though. And then right after that was Buffalo versus North Hampshire. Unfortunately, Buffalo lost. And my cousin plays for Buffalo.
Oh,
It's a-
dang. So your cousin was here.
My cousin was here.
Wow. How fun.
Unfortunately, he dislocated his shoulder in the game yesterday.
Oh, not fun.
Yeah, I felt so bad.
Dang.
But
That's crazy.
he said he's fine. So
All right.
took it like a champ.
Fair enough.
Definitely a tough injury to have, especially in a club game. But
That sucks.
yeah, not fun.
Brutal.
And then Buffalo will be back here again the day before Easter. I forget who they're playing against.
Okay.
Hey, you guys are live, so there was no intro. Just jump into it.
Back here on Newhouse Afternoon, Nico Horning and Alex Pohl. Almost wrapping up shop. Not quite yet.
Halfway through?
Yeah, halfway through. Got about 20 minutes or so here on the show. All right, Syracuse basketball with some newcomers. The biggest discussion here has been the guys that have entered the portal. Eddie Lampkin is one of them. Yeah, Kyle Cuff, Chance Westry, Chris Bell, Elijah Moore. Might be missing one.
I think you got them all.
I think I got them all. The list, I think Lucas Taylor today has entered the portal. So a lot of guys saying they're leaving. And Peter Maestorich, another one. So there's your departures. Now you're looking for guys to fill the void. You're going into the portal. You're looking for different guys to grab. And this is a big chance for Syracuse to grab some key guys, especially because J.J. Starling's staying, and Donnie Freeman has said he's going to stay as well. So for the amount of guys you're leaving, you're keeping your 2 main players, which is very important. And you bring in a few newcomers so far. Nathan George, a point guard from Georgia Tech, looks to be a pretty good player. Averaged 12 points or so last season with the Yellow Jackets. Had several 20-point performances as well. And this is a guy that can really run the point and maybe go alongside with J.J. Starling. So a great ad there for Syracuse. They keep adding these just mediocre guys, I think, averaging 2 points or whatever, and they get some time, but you don't know how they're going to fully pan out. They get some upside, but they don't have that stability. Nathan George is that guy that has shown what he can do for Georgia Tech. So we'll see how that transcends here in the next several months with Syracuse basketball next winter. Also, from Georgia Tech, Ibrahim Soare, they brought on a forward for Georgia Tech. One of those guys that didn't play a whole lot, but played enough and showed some upside. So we'll see what he can do to add to the depth here of the bigs for Syracuse. William Kyle came in from UCLA. And then Nate Kings as well, an Oregon State transfer who ends up here at Syracuse. Actually, I was in the airport at O'Hare. I was stuck in Chicago for a few hours on my way back here last Monday. And walking around, see this guy in an Oregon State backpack. And I look at the name just for, curiosity. It said Nate Kings. I'm like, oh, all right. Had nothing to do with Syracuse at the moment. I see the next day that he's transferred here to Syracuse. I'm like, wow, what are the odds of that happening?
What are the odds?
No interactions with the guy, but he was repping Oregon State, I guess, all the way up to the day he transferred to Syracuse. So I've seen him in action, if that makes sense. But those are the newcomers so far. So, Alex, with Starling and Freeman staying for sure, you got to start building some talent. We know the recruits in Kai and Anthony, Sadiq White. There's going to be a lot of new talent this year. How do they mesh? That's going to be the most important thing going forward. Because we saw what happened this past season with just some attitude issues, in my opinion, with certain guys, but also just guys not blending it together. So that's going to be most important going into next year.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to the culture and coming from the top down, being led by Coach Autry. I think he does a great job, but
and whether
next season, I think a lot needs to change in terms of the attitude of the team.
Right.
And
I was going to say, whether you because there's a lot of people that didn't want Autry to stay. Let's just put it straight. But I think it's so important that John Wild had committed to him when he did, because
100%.
You don't want that lingering going into the offseason and guys not knowing what's
especially when
going
you're
on.
trying to pull these commits in, and now they don't know who their head coach may or may not be.
And we know Autry's a great recruiter, and he's shown that, and he's done that.
So I think
you need it to translate on the court.
One of the really important points is people had doubts about Fran Brown. They said the only thing he's good at is recruiting. Look where that got us. One of the best seasons we've had in a very long time. Such an amazing football program. He's pulling in even more talent next year. Had a bunch of guys that wanted to follow him. So being a great recruiter means also being a great coach that people want to play for. And having Coach Autry being a solid recruiter is exactly what's going to help this program. Is now we have, like you just mentioned, a whole list of talent coming in, not only commits coming out of high school, but transfers. So people had doubts about how Autry's team was going to be, going back and forth. They're like, oh, he can only recruit, not a great coach, like this and that, doesn't know how to run a team. He did a phenomenal job in his first year. Autry has now had the team for a little bit, but it wasn't his own. And so now that he's really building up what he wants to see in his roster, I think that's where we're going to start seeing a positive change for his program. Now, we fall into the issue that we mentioned right at the start of this show, or really at the end of my show last semester, and then coming in with you guys, is what I thought the biggest issue for this team was chemistry. They weren't playing well together, and I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe a little bit of a rocky start. It could change, it could change, it could change. It never did. What the reason behind that is, up in the air. It's up, we could say that it has to do with just them not having enough time together, the attitude of different players. Whatever it was, it didn't work for this team. They pulled in great talent. We thought Eddie Lampkin was going to be the biggest turnaround for this Syracuse program. Everyone's like, oh, we have a great big now. And they just didn't mesh. And that's what it came down to. They didn't mesh as a team. They had solid talent. Now going into next year, they have even more talent, and that's when it's going to be the most necessary for them to work together as a team. You're pulling in so many amazing players, and you have guys that are staying, like Donnie Freeman, JJ Starling, but they have to be able to actually be a team at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter who you bring in unless Coach Autry is able to work with his team and make sure everyone knows, hey, this is our goal, this is where we need to be, and everyone has to actually buy in to him the way that the football team has bought into Fran Brown.
Spot on. I think the Fran Brown is a great comparison because you're right. National Recruiter of the Year from 24/7 Sports, and the guy turns out being someone that these players want to play for. And I think Autry has a chance to be that. He hasn't established himself yet because Syracuse had a way better year than Autry did in the first year. And not that Autry's first year was bad. It was just fine. It was average. It was acceptable. But Fran Brown came in here and really dominated things.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, it's a bit tough to compare. But from the
I think it's
recruiting
also a
angle,
different situation of Autry was already part of the basketball program.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
Where Fran Brown's coming in from a different program, so he brought people with him,
Sure.
and he was this big name coming in. Where Autry just kind of then moved his way up, which is great. He was already integrated within the Syracuse community and the guys on the team and the different coaching staff, and even down to the athletic trainers knowing everything about Syracuse.
Right.
But that doesn't have that same pull, which is why I think it's okay that he didn't have a huge first year in comparison to Fran Brown's huge first year. It's because it wasn't a giant change.
Right.
It was the same thing, and it wasn't even fully like all the guys that maybe he had wanted originally on his starting roster. Now he's building that up, but we'll see what he can do with it and if he can make a culture change.
Well, I think he has an opportunity to do so. It's going to, you mentioned it starts at the top with Autry. I think it also starts at the bottom in a way coming into the season because some of your better talent are the young guys. Akai and Anthony, Sadiq White, guys that are really going to be the future of this program. So we'll see how the Sterling and the Freemans of the world mesh with some of the younger transfers coming in and newcomers out of high school as well. So should be a more fun year of Syracuse basketball. We'll see, but plenty of months to go
and
before
our
that
final
comes up.
year of Syracuse basketball.
Yes, maybe we'll make the tournament for once in our 4 years.
In our 4 years.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they got a good shot, but we'll see.
Definitely.
All right, Syracuse basketball not for a little while. Syracuse football is a spring game this weekend, which should be fun if you're in town and can tune in or go to the Dome. Should be a fun environment. Getting to watch some of the newer guys and Ricky Collins, who transferred from LSU, possible starting quarterback this year for Syracuse. But one last little segment here when we come back. Syracuse women's lacrosse with a big win over Cal over the weekend and getting ready for Virginia Tech this upcoming weekend. I'll be down there in Blacksburg to call the game as well, which should be fun. So we'll talk about that here in the next few minutes on Newhouse Afternoon. You're listening to ESPN Syracuse and Q Sports Talk.
The 315 with Brian Higgins.
If you are a
Sorry about that. Our system just crashed out.
All good.
All good.
Come out of silence and
Red and Alex.
Keeps just dipping out on us. Now I have Syracuse women's lacrosse.
Yes.
Oh, and men's, I just want to check the women's ranking in the polls because the men's one just came out and they are now ranked number 4. Huge win for the program this weekend.
Oh, for sure.
That was...
Syracuse they were 11 last week, right? Or no? Wait.
Let's see. So yeah, Syracuse men's lacrosse, as of today, or a little less than an hour ago, is now ranked 4th in the D1 coaches polls, at least. And in inside lacrosse. Yep. Both of them ranked them number 4. So it's going to be a top 5 matchup
Yes, it will be.
down on Long
It will
Island.
be. Yes. What about the women's team? When does that come out?
I'm looking for it right now.
I think it's later today, to be honest.
Let's see.
I always wonder how this stuff gets decided.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that on last week they were 6th, the women's team.
Right.
And they haven't posted it yet, but let's see. Rankings.
Oh, I think it's
D1 weekly polls. Here we go. Is this today? This is today. Do you have it already? Mine's
There's
today.
7.
There. Yeah.
Okay.
At least for the IWLCA. That's the thing, is that so when they
I don't
post
know why
about
they all
it.
use different ones.
Yeah.
So stupid. My rant for today. Pick a ranking and stick with it. I don't need to look for 6 different rankings and then some organization decides to use one, and then the other one uses the other.
That's true.
Wrapping up shop here on Newhouse Afternoon with Alex Pohl. I'm Nico Horning, and we're going to wrap up the show with women's lacrosse. But real quick, I got to get to something. When we have rankings, there's coaches polls, there's inside lacrosse rankings. I'm sure there's USA something lacrosse rankings as well. There's NCAA rankings on their website.
Yeah, there's IWLCA for women. You have Inside Lacrosse, NCAA.
Yeah. Let's pick one. All right. Let's stick to one and pick one so we can all figure out what these teams are ranked. Okay? I can't stand looking at 10 different websites to pick out which ranking is correct that the ESPNs of the world and Syracuse Athletics is going to use officially for their stats coming up for the next game. So pick a ranking. Let's stick with it. This goes for a lot of college sports, but especially for lacrosse. I'm done looking at 5 different web pages. Let's pick a ranking and have everyone agree. Wouldn't that be nice?
Because right now we have men's lacrosse.
I mean, I've seen Syracuse in one day ranked 11th, 8th, and 6th, and 7th.
That is correct.
So
as of today.
Yeah. So which one are we going with?
That's the thing, is I think it ends up being the team starts posting, going with whichever one they're in the highest ranking of that week. But
Unbelievable. All right. Syracuse beat Cal. Something ranked Syracuse.
Something ranked Syracuse. Somewhat ranked Syracuse. I think, generally we're going to go with inside, but the women's team has now been leaning more towards IWLCA. So that's the Intercollegiate Women's Lacrosse Coaches Association. So which one we're going to stick with, we don't know. But women's lacrosse.
Yes, it's here. All right, good win over Cal. Got Virginia Tech this weekend. What a season change, I think, overall. You lose Olivia Adamson for the year early on. We came on here. Very tough situation. They lost to Clemson barely at home.
Yep.
They beat Stanford in a very close game. And then they lost to Johns Hopkins by 1. And then all of a sudden, they've been going on a great run. Beat Pitt, Loyola, Notre Dame, Virginia, lost to Yale, beat Cal. And then we'll see what happens with Virginia Tech and Boston College to round out the season. But this team has really shown some resilience throughout the year, and I think a lot of that can be credited to Emma Ward and a few others. So,
yeah, 100%. Not only on the attacking end, but defense as well. You had Danny Guyette coming out, just such a phenomenal job.
Yep.
Sammy Jimmy McCool did a great job stepping up this season. Like you had mentioned when we talked about men's, on the women's side, on both teams we were worried about the specialists. So, draw control and face-off, as well as goalies. And I think both teams now, towards the end of the season, have been able to step up on both sides of the ball and have done a great job. So you have Danny Guyette doing a solid job for the women's team. Jolie Caramelli, the sophomore, really filling the shoes of taking those draw controls. It's been back and forth. Originally, it was a lot of Meg Road taking them, but Caramelli stepped in a bit, taking a few more, and she's just done a phenomenal job in the past couple games, especially against when they pulled off that Notre Dame win. she really was making an impact on the circle.
It's been a fun year to watch some new players kind of form into their respective positions. Dan Guyette being one of them, and then you mentioned the face-off or draw circle as well. So it's been a good year in a sense for that to have some players find some comfortability because Olivia Adamson is out for the year, and Vogelman scoring, Gracie Britton scoring, of course Emma Ward. There's been a few that have really emerged here in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I just think something we can't look over though is the loss against Yale.
Yes,
right. Like I said, Julie Caramelli done a great job stepping up, but we've said it time and time again where those are the concerns, those specialist areas, and that is somewhere where they completely fell off in draw controls was versus Yale. So when they took on Yale, they obviously lost the game. So it was 13-10 as the final score. But in shots, Yale had taken a couple more shots than they did. But in terms of shots on goal, it was pretty solid match. So you have Yale with 22, Syracuse with 19. So only had a couple more shots on goal. And then in terms of saves, the goalies were completely even. 9 and 9 saves.
No.
There's no difference on that end. And clears, they both made almost every single clear. And ground balls, Syracuse, again, only had one more ground ball. Syracuse only had 8 turnovers. Yale had 13 turnovers in this game. So the fact that on the draw control, Syracuse in the entire game only had 7 draw controls and Yale had 19, that's the only thing that killed them.
Right.
And they're going to have to figure that out by the end of the season if they want to keep going and stay in those top rankings.
Well, 2 more games to do so. Virginia Tech this weekend, Boston College coming up as well. That does it for this hour of Newhouse Afternoon with Alex Pohl. I'm Nico Horning, and we'll be back on for one last time with Evan Fay next weekend. Tune in on Monday.